Good afternoon, Chief Garnett.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Sounds good, thank you.
Great, thank you. Have a great meeting.
You too.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the clerk with a courtesy announcement that this meeting is now being streamed live on the internet.
Good afternoon, Dr. Guez. I'm so sorry if I butchered your name.
Good afternoon.
Your audio sounds great. And will you be presenting slides today?
I will not. I will be speaking to some topics.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's Gez, just in case, like Rodriguez
you.
without the Rodri. Thank you.
Perfect. I appreciate that. And good afternoon, Arcel.
Good afternoon.
Audio sounds good. Thank you. And good afternoon, Janet.
Good afternoon.
I can hear you fine. Do you have any slides you'd like to test?
I believe Alicia will be joining and she'll have the slides.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Darcel. I have some slides that I would like to test.
Oh, perfect. Please go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And where is it?
Good afternoon, Supervisor Ellenberg.
Good afternoon.
Your audio is just a little bit faint. I'm not sure if that was.
Oh, how's that?
That's better. Thank you.
Okay, just my voice then. Thank you.
And Arcel, I can see that you just want to go to view and presentation.
Thank you, Ursula. I see that.
Is that good?
Yes, thank you.
That looks great.
Oh, perfect. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you. And Rocio, your audio sounds good. And Dr. Garcia, welcome. If you'd like to check your microphone.
Check, check, check. Happy Thursday, everyone.
Sounds great. Thank you. And it's my understanding that Jamie will be handling slides for you. Is that correct, Dr. Dewan?
Yes, if Dr. Garcia has any slides she would like advanced, she'll just say next slide and Jamie will move them. And Dr. Garcia will have 2 minutes to speak and there will be a timer shown to reflect your 2 minutes. Welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, Supervisor Chavez.
Hi there. I was actually just going to say, Marianne, the same thing that you were saying, because we're going to need everybody to be so tight because we have
recording in progress.
A lot of speakers today. A lot of presenters. And we need to make sure we have time for public comment as well.
And we have several people still joining. If anyone would like to do a quick sound check, you may.
Is that you, Nancy?
It's Jess Jameson, but close.
Hi, Jess. Well, close. Sorry, I didn't recognize your voice.
That's okay. I appreciate you trying. Your audio
Obviously,
sounds fine.
You can hear me.
Yes.
Hi, Jess. This is Catherine. Can you hear me okay?
Sounds great.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, Nancy Albaron's on.
Nancy, your audio sounds good.
Hi, this is Zelia.
Hi, Zelia. Sounds great.
Alicia Pimentel with Anthem.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Rob Coelho here.
Thanks, Rob. Sounds good. And I'll go ahead and stop sound checks. It's 2 p.m. and I'll turn it over.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm going to call the our Children's Family Seniors Committee meeting to order. This is actually a special meeting to focus on child care, child well-being, mental health, and chronic absenteeism. And we have I can't even tell you how jam-packed today is. So I'm going to run through the agenda and just to alert the public who's listening and also our participants. So we're going to, item 2 is we're going to, we're going to do roll call, then we're going to do the administrative action declaring the continued state of emergency so we can do this online. We are then going to hear under item 3, we're going to hear item A and B, and each of these items are very chunky. So Supervisor Ellenberg, what we're going to do is we're going to go through item 3A. We're going to leave a little time for discussion and really for clarifying questions, and then 3B, because in some respects they are going to impact each other for a more robust discussion. From a time perspective, we have 20 people that are presenting today. And so what I'm going to share with everybody is that I'm pretty rigorous on time, and we're going to be timing you also. There's information in our packet that Supervisor Ellenberg and I have had a chance to review, and we do want to make sure we hear from everybody, but because there are so many of you, we're really asking you to stay within your 2 minutes or whatever the time that you've been given by my staff and by Dr. Duan. So with that, we're going to go to 3A, 3B. Then we're going to take public comment on item 3. Then we will go to public comment, and that's an opportunity to speak to items that are not on the agenda but within the purview of the committee, and then we will adjourn. We are going to our goal for this meeting is to we have a two-hour meeting, and we again want to make sure that the public has an opportunity to weigh in. So again, to my colleagues, if you're going long, I'm just going to interrupt you and ask you to wrap up. And I apologize in advance for anything that appears rude. It's not intended. It's really intended to make sure everybody can participate. So with that, I'm going to ask our clerk to call the roll.
Good afternoon. Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
I'm here.
And Chairperson Chavez.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Item 2 is to declare a continued state of emergency. I need a motion to do so.
Move approval.
And a second from me. Please call the roll.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
And Chairperson Chavez.
Yes, thank you. Thanks so much. So just as a reminder to set the stage here for item 3, this is a report back from county staff on requests made during the September 9th meeting, our joint special meeting of Children's, Seniors, and Family Committee and the City of San Jose's Neighborhood Services and Education Committee. Through the following presentation, we're going to receive information relating to funding streams, upcoming opportunities, and policy recommendations for the next steps. And I'm going to now turn it over to Dr. Luna.
Good afternoon, Supervisors Chavez and Ellenberg. I think we have a PowerPoint that our cell is going to load for us. It's a brief PowerPoint.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Garcia Luna. I'm a Deputy County Executive, along with Dr. Marianne Dewan, Superintendent of County Office of Education. We have a very short PowerPoint to provide you with an overview of the state of early childcare and early learning, as well as opportunities to address workforce and facilities needs. A lot of the data in the report, in the written report, comes from many of the partners on this at this meeting today, including the County Office of Education, First 5, the City of San Jose, Healthier Kids Foundation, and many, many others. So I want to just acknowledge them before we present an overview of today's information. Next slide. In Santa Clara County, early childhood care and education is provided by a wide range of providers across many different settings. Providers include nonprofit, community organizations, school districts, colleges and universities, for-profit corporations, faith-based groups, cities and their parks and recs divisions, and individuals providing care in their own homes. The diversity of providers and options creates a challenge to understanding the scope and breadth of assets in the county. But what we do know is that children, childcare, early learning, the workforce and facilities are symbiotic and interdependent. So when there are not enough workers and facilities, that limits how many children can actually be served. Childcare and early learning services are not currently entitlements in California, but we know that the demand for these services continues to rise due to demographic, economic, and social factors both in our county and abroad. This is a very complicated landscape. Next slide. In Santa Clara County, early child care, according to the nonprofit partisan group Center of American Progress that provides information for all states and specific counties, child care deserts are defined as any census tract with more than 50 children under the age of 5 that contains either no child care providers or so few child care providers, so few options that there are more than 3 times as many children as licensed care slots. While we know that there are child care needs in every part of our county, this need is particularly acute in parts of South County and the eastern corridor of San Jose. So in this map, you see the parts that are dark red and orange. These deserts were present before the pandemic, and so today we continue to see the decline in availability. The County Office of Ed, in a 2017 report, estimated that there were a total of well over 1,500 licensed care facility, 1,500 licensed family home providers, and in November, this is now down to just a little over 1,300. Next slide. This map comes from the same group, but this illustrates the overlap between child poverty and child availability. Again, the areas in darkest red gives you a sense of sort of the overlay of need, particularly in these particular areas of our county. Next slide. There are several assets that can be leveraged to help address the unmet needs. That said, it's important to put the data into context. In 2020, there were approximately 135,000 children in our county aged 0 to 5. In 2019, kidsdata.org reported that there were approximately 60,000 children in some form of childcare in our county. Pulling from multiple sources, we estimate that there's roughly about $140 million coming into Santa Clara County to support children and their families that meet eligibility criteria, mainly income thresholds. This amount of funding has remained relatively stable over the last several years. That is until the very recent investments by the state of California to the tune of $7.2 billion statewide. While we don't know exactly what the local share of these data of this amount of money will be, we do know that we expect to have upwards of 350 new preschool slots, 8,000 new daycare slots, and just slightly over 14,000 new transitional care slots. While this is a substantial investment and it gets us closer to meeting the unmet needs for children, for subsidized childcare slots, our ability to maximize these funds are going to be contingent on the ability to hire qualified staff and create more spaces for children in our county. The state also recognizes this need and will be issuing competitive grants to help. Our partners are keeping close watch for grant announcements that include grants for infrastructure for the acquisition, construction, development, and renovation of child care facilities, and funds for local education agencies to increase the number of qualified teachers. With that, I will turn it over to Dr. Dewan for the next few slides.
Thank you, Dr. Luna. So as you mentioned, one of the barriers to this expansion and our ability to leverage all of these funds will be workforce. As you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, we demonstrate what we estimate the need for workforce in this space to be in the coming years. However, there are many opportunities, and we address these in our memo to the Board of Supervisors and the City of San Jose. Workforce Development Program is one opportunity in which we can increase the number as well as the diversity of workers in this space. We also propose the development of a shared service alliance so that we can prepare new childcare providers, provide apprentice pathways, as well as establish an online high school child development certification program. Next slide. Facilities continues to be a barrier, one in which minimal investment has been made over the past few years, but increasing opportunities. These will be competitive grant opportunities, and we will need local investment and local match in order to bring these dollars into our county. Our opportunities include building new childcare facilities as well as modifying existing classrooms and facilities to be suitable for childcare and preschool, and to incentivize developers to ensure that they are including affordable childcare facilities in new developments. And finally, to support partnerships that allow for grant funding so that we can ensure that facilities as well as inclusive playgrounds and outdoor learning spaces are available for childcare, preschool, and transitional kindergarten.
That concludes our PowerPoint. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I think if we can, let me start to just see if Susan, if you want to jump in now, or if we should let the second presentation go forward. I mean, they're different ages, so what's your thought?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I've got questions directed specifically to childcare that I would prefer to ask now, and then when we switch to mental health and chronic absenteeism, we won't be bouncing back and forth. Does that work?
Yep, of course. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I've heard the exhortations to be tight.
Oh, actually,
and I will...
Susan, I'm sorry. Let me just say to the public, we're going to give everybody who's in the public 2 minutes to weigh in, but we won't do that till after we hear the second item. So if you want to weigh in on either 3A or 3B, feel free to raise your hand now. We will get to you, I promise. Go ahead, Supervisor. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Perfect, not a problem. And thank you, Dr. Luna and Dr. Dewan and county staff and all of the stakeholders for this comprehensive report based on the direction given at the joint San Jose CFSC meeting a few months ago. On a broad level, and looking at all of the work that stems from our conversations today, for both 3A and this will apply to 3B, I'm concerned that we're looking at a year-long work plan of really important issues that impact our county's children and families, but we still don't have staff in the Children's Policy Office that Chairperson Chavez and I introduced and which received unanimous support from our board colleagues over a year and a half ago. This is a major accountability moment in my view, and tomorrow at CFSC, I'll be making similar comments on the agendized item for the Children's Policy Office, where I'd like administration to consider appointing an interim person into that office to start working on all of these coordination, policy, and advocacy issues that need to be addressed and implemented as we continue to look for a permanent hire. And Dr. Smith, I see that you're joining us today, so just want to put that on your radar so that we can get some better information tomorrow about how soon we can get this work going. Specifically, thank you, with regard to workforce development, as I noted at the previous joint special meeting, my office and I have been working on this with First Five since prior to the pandemic. We're very familiar with the difficulties not only in workforce recruitment, but in development and retention, which of course also means in pay. The pandemic clearly revealed inequities and fragility in the system upon which childcare has been built, and I'm deeply committed to being a part of the solution to creating a sustainable infrastructure. But back quickly to the three main buckets of facility, slots, and workforce. Each element we know is vital to making childcare work. All of the spaces and slots in the world won't matter if we don't have childcare workers and educators and teachers. And as we've seen from today's presentation, there's really a lot to be done in each of these buckets. We have an opportunity to capitalize on the shift of public mindset around childcare and how it is an essential service, not only to keep our economy moving, but also to grow the economy. We know that a robust childcare sector is going to form the backbone of Santa Clara County's economic recovery. I'm excited to see that First Five, in partnership with the County Office of Ed, are looking forward to move these key initiatives, including TK equitable workforce development supports, including access to credential-aligned coursework, First 5 Santa Clara's ESEPS apprenticeship program, and the unique shared services alliance that incentivizes, prepares, and supports new or expanded family care from home businesses to meet increased demand for working families. I'm really looking forward to supporting these initiatives. And again, Dr. Smith, just coming back to the message about opening that Office of Children's Policy, we're so ready to go. And you're hearing today, and we'll hear in the next part of the presentation, how ready we are to start implementing work. So again, really urging you to get somebody in that position for us so that we can turn all of these great conversations into impact for kids and families. Thanks.
I think you just heard Rocio, Dr. Luna saying yes.
We're up for it. I won't go through the reasons why we held back a little bit, but anyhow, we're moving ahead at this point.
Please, and do consider the idea of an interim person so that we can really hit the ground running in January while the position is reposted. Thank you.
And the position is being reposted?
It's reposted now.
Okay, thank you.
It's up now?
It's up now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I Susan, I think the idea of interim is really a great idea. So thank you for bringing that forward. I have an additional question, and I think this is a real question for Dr. Dewan and Dr. Luna. You know, one of the challenges that I see with childcare, you know, I'm just going to use workforce as an example, that some of our most important partners there, I think, are sitting in the community colleges, and even San Jose State is doing an online degree right now to help folks who have their 2-year degree be able to get their 4-year degree. I don't know if you know that, Susan, but it's newer for them, and they're trying to shorten the class lengths too, so that they're more concentrated. And I just had a chance to talk to the Dean of Education about this recently. And so my question is, what is the what infrastructure do you all have to be coordinating and working on this effort on an ongoing basis? And it's a little bit of a springboard off of what Supervisor Ellenberg just said about you know, about maybe needing that interim person. But what is the tool now you use?
In terms of the training and credentialing for the early care and education workforce?
Yes, but also, so I guess what I'm wondering is, Dr. Dewan and Dr. Luna, do we have a permanent small, a permanent small group that's pushing through these policies and initiatives that is a collaboration between the county Office of Education and partners? And I'm really talking about, I'm not talking about like First 5%. I'm just asking if there's a smaller group of like 5 or 6 people that are driving this.
We do routinely collaborate with a small group of individuals, including San Jose State University leadership, and especially working on workforce development ideas and facilities projects. There are the county is a part of that group, First 5 is a part of it, San Jose State, and a couple others. And there are some also separate work groups that are working on different pieces of these projects. So led by my office, out of our educator preparation program, we have some collaboratives that include other university partners, community colleges, towards this workforce development and credentialing. And in particular, right now are studying all the different pathways for a TK workforce.
And I would add also that First Five does have a sub-working group on this, I think being led by Wendy Mahaney-Garahu and Heidi Amberling, possibly. And they have a very robust plan on paper worked out and are working on the partnerships in order to really focus their contribution to this on workforce development. When we talked a few months ago, we kind of separated the buckets, thinking that the county's lead role on here could very likely be in the area of facilities, the County Office of Ed on slots, and First Five on workforce development. And we were part of the legislative advocacy for AB 1073, which was the ECE workforce waiver at community colleges. So there are a lot of eyes and energy around this. Part of it, of course, is going to be coordination and funding.
I think that Dr. Dewan, did you want to weigh in again?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that there's a number of the competitive grant opportunities will also have to drive who might lead on different aspects because there will be, for example, some funds for workforce development that only county office and LEA could be lead on. But it would be our intent to still, partner with First Five and others. There will be other grant opportunities that will be competitive for which First Five would be the appropriate lead. And there could be some that we anticipate that institutions of higher education will be the competitive lead.
Yeah, that's actually part of what I was reflecting on. But the other thing that I was just thinking about is how we prioritize this body of work through all of our agencies. And that was really what's prompting the question. And, and I think, and perhaps this may be a question through Dr. Smith to Dr. Luna, which is, as it relates to applying for competitive grants, who on our team is taking the lead on that to support all of these efforts? And do we have someone identified?
I can speak for that Dr. Dewan and her team and several of us have been sort of working together. So we're keeping eyes on that right now until in an interim basis as we build out capacity in the new Office of Children and Families policy.
So just to be clear, are we relying on Dr. Dewan's staff until we have staff?
How should we? Well, we definitely, several of us are paying attention to what's happening at the state, and we're sort of keeping ourselves in the know together. So we're kind of not necessarily reliant, but working together to make sure that we're not missing any opportunities.
Yeah, I think, and by the way, that wasn't a judgment word. That was like, we only have so many resources. And here's let me just take a giant step back and just say what the outcome I'm trying to drive home here is that, first of all, I think the partnership we have the county and our partnership with the County Office of Education has been amazing. I think the leadership that Susan, you've provided in our partnership with First Five in particular has been just stellar. So I'm really excited about all those partnerships. What I'm really looking for is whether or not it's possible for us to put together a shared work plan that sets some goals for everything from the number of people that we're going to have go through our pipeline that we see an opportunity to get educated for the workforce, to the number of facilities that are going to need to be built. Because my hope is that a shared work plan, even if it identifies that the county is going to play this role and the county office is going to play this role, that we can be very public with all of our partners about where we are, what kind of goals we're meeting, and also how much resources and where we're drawing them down. And the reason that's so critical to me is that where we have multiple partners, we want to be able to really maximize those partnerships. And frankly, I want to make sure that there's no place that we're kind of falling through the cracks. A number of the issues that we're talking about today, our partnerships are partly what strengthen us, but those partnerships are also sometimes not tight enough for us not to lose kids or families through the cracks. So that's really what the orientation of my question is. And so I appreciate Supervisor Ellenberg's point about workforce and facilities and the like. I too recognize that the funding sources and how all of that funding is going to be availed is still being developed as we're speaking, and that joint group could play a leadership role in helping figure out what resources we can leverage at a local level. So that's part of why I'm asking that question and why I like joint work plans. And also I think it holds us accountable to each other, not just to the public, but here's what I'm going to do. Here's what you're going to do.
Agreed. And I do note that First Five was not part of this presentation, which I think was a miss, because that would give us some more information about workforce development, and just want to make sure when we are talking about partnerships that we are including all of the partners at the table and not inadvertently leaving out any part of our network that really helps us draw the complete picture.
And the other thing I'll just add is that the reason I'm asking the question about leadership is that we have a number of boards, you know, that have gotten so large that no one's in charge, and I just don't think they're very functional. So what I'm really asking for is a leadership team that includes everybody, but that's not 100 people, that puts together a work plan and a timeline and starts to target funding sources so that each of our entities, the County Office of Education, First Five, and the County of Santa Clara and the cities of San Jose and whatever other cities want to be involved, can look at all of that collectively and hold ourselves and each other accountable. And that is the direction I hope that we can give today to our staff to play a leadership role in pulling that together. And again, not like we have the cross systems team. That's just too big. It really is who's accountable for making sure that we are poised to draw down this money, and frankly that we're cutting through the red tape so that we're hitting all the big timelines. That is really the action I hope comes out of our activity today.
Supervisor Chavez, if I might just note that a small group, as you've described, has been meeting since the joint meeting with the Neighborhood Services Unit, which included the City of San Jose, county staff, County Office of Education, and First Five. And that is the development of the memo that's included in today's packet was crafted. It was with the voice and collaboration of all the partners. And it's possible that the budget summaries included in that memo could be the start of the work plan that you're describing.
I completely agree. Like, the ingredients are here. I just want to know next year when we say, oh my gosh, we were able to do this, this, and this. And I want to say thank you to so-and-so, that we're not looking back saying and I know, listen, everybody's working really hard. It really is just a way. I like for us to have guideposts, because then it tells me, are we meeting the goals that we need? So I think the material is amazing. The work that's been done already has been fabulous. I do want to reinforce the point that Supervisor Ellenberg raised about that interim position, because I actually think that will help with the locus of the work that needs to happen out of the county. But you know, I'll just say that what I hope we get a chance to see is when we do a check back in, you know, in the end of first quarter, that we have that work plan, that we have those goals set, that we have the financial opportunities in place, and that we have that governing body. And honestly, it shouldn't be more than 5 or 6 people. It really shouldn't be. It's the principals of each organization that are meeting regularly to make sure that we're staying on where we need to be. So good. Well, so with that, I'm gonna wrap this part up, Susan. That way we can bake all this while we're thinking about a final motion, and we're going to go to the next section. And I want to thank everybody, both the presenters and also the people who gave us the background information. That was very well done. So we're going to go on then to item 3B. And item 3B, I know we have a little crew here for 3B that we're going to start with. And this is really to focus on mental health and chronic absenteeism. And I really want to take this time to thank the county staff, as well as the schools and the healthcare providers and others, for making this meeting today possible. I particularly want to thank Amy Wynn on my team, who's just relentless. She is amazing. And I know you all have been stalked by her. So as is suggested by the agenda, we're going to hear from county staff to provide information on the county's current programs, Dr. Dewan, from our county office of ed to address service gaps and funding opportunities. And then we have 2 panels of district superintendents to share with us what they're facing on the ground, and also a panel of insurance providers to highlight their services for school-based mental health. And lastly, some concluding remarks by Dr. Dewan. After the presentation is completed, I'm going to ask Supervisor Ellenberg for any thoughts that you have, and then we're going to go to the public and we'll come back to the board for action. So Zelia, are you our fearless leader on this item?
Hi, good afternoon, Supervisor Chavez. It's Catherine is going to be doing the presentation.
Oh, great. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and share my screen. So good afternoon, Chairpersons Chavez and Vice Chairpersons Ellenberg. I'm Catherine Spears. I'm with Behavioral Health Services Department, and I oversee Schooling Services Initiative, as well as the school-based behavioral health programs in Santa Clara County. So today we'll be looking at some prevalence data, and as well as answering or looking at 3 questions. One is, what are the unmet needs? And then what are the barriers to meeting these unmet needs? And then how do we close the gap? So information pulled to this presentation was with our partners at County Office of Ed, with Dr. Dewan and her team, and then also with our staff here at Behavioral Health. So just to share about the prevalence data, and the national prevalence data, 1 in 6 students are chronically absent. This was data from 2016. Local state data shows that about 12% of students in 2019 were chronically absent. And then in local data in Santa Clara County, 1 in 11 students, about 8.8% of students were chronically absent as well. And contributing factors to chronic absenteeism includes poor health, physical, psychosocial, as well as mental health, limited transportation, as well as lack of safety. And then we want to also share with you the prevalence data on mental health needs. And so according to the NAMI, 1 in 6 youth are experiencing mental health illnesses, and that is a national prevalence data. State data shows that 1 in 13, so about 7.6% of youth are experiencing emotional disturbance that impact their daily functioning. That includes impacting their school achievement as well as home achievement. And then local data, it's been difficult to capture our prevalence data locally, primarily because we at Behavioral Health only have the data that's available to us through our behavioral health services, and not services that are provided to students through their managed care plans or through school. So our Behavioral Health Services Department has a wide range of services going across prevention, early intervention, all the way to residential treatment. And we have here our Children, Youth, and Family System of Care. This encompasses prevention programs. That's primarily where our school-based services are, which is our schooling services, family engagement program, schooling services, prevention and early intervention program, and schooling services, behavioral health, which is individual therapy. And through this robust continuum of care, we are able to serve about 9,500 youth, children and their families, as well as transitional age youth. And within this continuum of care, we serve primarily our funding source has been the Mental Health Services Act, as well as Medi-Cal reimbursement. So in FY21, we Schooling Services Initiative had at least 1 program in 17 school districts. In FY22, we're engaging with 7 additional school districts. We've just completed a service agreement with 1 additional school district. And in FY23 and onward, we're hoping to increase our partnerships in school districts to all Santa Clara County school districts by either having a family engagement program, which is the SLS coordinator role to support with service coordination, also possibly expanding our prevention and early intervention services and schooling services behavioral health programs. Just to share, in FY21, about 253,000 students were enrolled in schools in Santa Clara County. And it is expected with 253,000 students, that majority of our students would receive Tier 1 supports. Tier 1 supports are universal supports and services. It's really focusing on providing services to any student, regardless of their health plan, providing psychoeducation, mental health promotion. Tier 2 supports, we would be serving about 38,000 students, and this is 15% of the total population. This is primarily serving students that are in a group setting, so possibly doing parenting groups or student groups, like social skills groups. And then 10% of our population were expected to serve students with individual therapy, and that accounts for about 25,000 students. 67% of our students in Santa Clara County are privately insured, while 32% of the students are either uninsured or have Medi-Cal or part of the Medi-Cal managed care plan. And this is based on the free and reduced lunch applications in 2020 and 21. Oops, sorry. And then just to share here, over time, we've had an average chronic school absenteeism rate from FY17 to 19, and showing that a slight increase over time has happened throughout the 3 years, starting from 6.9% to 7.4% in FY19. And then our state chronic absenteeism rate is 12%. So the idea here is also, again, to provide tiers of supports and services to address chronic absenteeism at a universal prevention programs and then selected intervention programs for those students who are at risk, and then those students who are chronically absent to provide individual supports and services. So some of the barriers to meeting the unmet needs, as we look at the workforce shortage, we have primarily in Tier 3 services, so providing that individual therapy, and the limitations of services that we have from social workers and clinicians due to the lack of the workforce. We have been looking at how do we incentivize incentivize clinicians. How do we ensure that there is enough support providing those to provide individual therapy, and also building our prevention and early intervention programs. So some of those prevention and early intervention programs are provided to students by non-credentialed staff, so non-clinicians. They could be provided by rehabilitation counselors, case managers, family partners. Additionally, another barrier is building and maintaining the MTSS framework, and this coincides with the increased crisis needs. So as we started the school year, we started seeing a number of crisis calls coming from schools to our mobile response stabilization services program, and that has shown an increase in crisis needs. This also then looking at how we've been build and maintain MTSS programs has been looking at primarily attending to the crisis needs. In some ways, we are then having to put on hold or regroup our Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports. Another barrier is the legislative eligibility criteria for programs and services. As I mentioned, in our system of care, primarily our services are provided by for Medi-Cal or uninsured and underserved students. So there's criteria based on MHSA and Medi-Cal of who we can serve through those programs. And how do we close the gap? So this is in partnership with County Office of Ed, how we've been engaging with new school districts and partnerships with new school districts. We've been outreaching to school districts, and our goal is to outreach to the remaining 10 school districts starting the new year to offer the SLS coordinator role to help provide service coordination. We've also expanded school-based behavioral health services in a couple of school districts and looking to expand more so. We've identified some core supports and still working on identifying other supports and services that would be across all schools and school districts. So currently we've identified 4 psychoeducation groups and trainings that could be provided to students, parents, and to faculty. And then also looking at the SLS coordinator role across all school districts. Again, partnering with the managed care plans and having discussions with managed care plans. Supporting County Office of Education's lead in implementing wellness centers across Santa Clara County. Through the MHSSA grant, we've opened 4 wellness centers in 3 school districts. And then additionally, additional funding is set to come, although we don't know how much funding would be coming to school-based mental health. Funding from the American Rescue Plan is additional funding that will be coming our way. So just some next steps and future goals is that, as what we shared, is that we hope to have an SLS coordinator in all school districts. We also plan to expand our prevention and early intervention services, and then also identifying core supports and services that behavioral health and school districts can leverage from county supports to fill in some of the gaps. That concludes the presentation. Open to answering any questions that you may have.
I think that we should go on to the superintendent's panel and then the insurance panel, and then we'll be able to ask all these questions. Have our discussion together. So if I could turn to our next panel.
Thank you, Supervisor Chavez. We'll start with an opening from our office, and then I'll be facilitating the two superintendent panels. Next slide. Addressing the whole child and whole family needs requires investment in aligned systems and expanded services. We spoke earlier about the importance of continuity of care and early learning and child care, as we know it reduces trauma, increases school readiness, reduces exclusion, and builds healthy habits for attendance, and increases early identification of disabilities. Additionally, school-based behavioral health and social emotional learning reduces suspension and chronic absenteeism, increases graduation rates, increases access, and decreases attrition. Next. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, mental health challenges were the leading cause of disability and poor life outcomes in young people, with up to 1 in 5 children ages 3 to 17 in the U.S. having a mental, emotional, developmental, or behavioral disorder. This fall, a coalition of the nation's leading experts in pediatric health declared a national emergency. Next slide. 4 key areas of prevention promote academic success, mental health, wellness, good school attendance, and overall well-being. Next. Last August, we shared the results of our district surveys. As in-person instruction resumed, we find that these factors and needs continue to be relevant, though more intense and more chronic. Next. School-based wellness centers provide a comprehensive and integrated school-based mental health program that addresses prevention, school climate, diagnosis, and treatment. Next, children spend almost 1/3 of their lives at school. Unmet trauma and mental health needs are strongly associated with barriers to learning, such as disengagement, chronic absenteeism, suspension and expulsion, and school dropout. Schools can be the first line of defense in identifying and addressing mental health needs before they become severe and disabling. Next, data conveys the intensity and seriousness of needs among our children and youth. This is the foundation of our goal to increase access to services, carrying well-trained personnel and wellness centers. Next. School-based wellness centers address the common and uncommon issues faced by students, as an overwhelming number of them come to school every day with a myriad of trauma impacts, mental health problems, anxieties, and differing levels of development of wellness habits and self-regulation. The presence of a wellness center on campus was found to increase student access to mental health services. Next. Our vision is to embed wellness practices and habits into a positive school culture, provide direct access to mental health services for all students, have trained professionals available, provide services to students at no cost to their families, provide mental health services at schools with minimal engagement and high poverty rates with health service organizations, and address the mental health concerns exacerbated by COVID-19 pandemic. Next, wellness centers are one component of an overall trauma-informed model that seeks to improve the school environment. They're not intended to be standalone programs. Embedded in the school wellness culture is the understanding of the impact of dysregulated behavior, its effects on daily functioning, including academics, and the importance of providing supports that promote health and well-being across all 3 tiers of the multi-tiered system of support. Next, to provide school-based health and wellness, we will need to leverage varied funding sources and build out infrastructure with the whole child in mind. Next, students are 21 times more likely to receive services when they are provided on a school site. Next, students and families that are referred to off-site clinics are much less likely to receive initial or ongoing services than those initially offered at a school site. In a study comparing on versus off-campus delivery models, 100% of families referred for school-based services received them, while only 8% of the families referred to an off-site clinic followed through and received services. Next, the state has recognized the need to meet children where they are at school, not as a replacement for programs, services, and partnerships, but rather to expand access, address equity, and build a stronger public infrastructure for whole child, whole family. Next, the vision of schools as centers of wellness is within our reach. Next, there are 3 components in the state's Children and Youth Behavioral Health Initiative that are important to note. The Children and Youth Behavioral Health Initiative will include multiple grants for incentives, infrastructure, workforce, and technology. Many of these will be competitive grant opportunities for schools, a few for managed care organizations, and a few for community-based providers. The Community Schools Partnership Program will also be expanded, and competitive grants will be available for schools within Santa Clara County. And it is possible that the Mental Health Student Services Act, which is currently funding 4 of our wellness centers, could be expanded and additional recipients could be within Santa Clara County. Next. Funds have not yet been disseminated in this state plan. We expect a gradual release of application information over the course of 2022, with the first being available in January. We intend to apply for all of the competitive grants for which our county will be eligible. I do wish to caution that many will require a local match of funding and will be one-time funds to help build out infrastructure. Next, in collaboration with our partners, we bring forward key recommendations that are also included in the memo I referenced earlier. Next, the first section was about early learning, which we've already addressed, and I would like to highlight next our recommendations to expand wellness services at schools, to fund youth recommended services, and to support the county in its efforts to expand school link services coordinators to every school district. Our recommendations are aligned to those contained in the United States Surgeon General's advisory, which is also attached to the agenda. We'll now hear from our school district leaders. Our first panelist will be Dr. Shelley Viramontes from the Campbell Union School District. Dr. Viramontes will have 2 minutes, and I believe as a member of staff will be putting up a timer. Welcome, Dr. Viramontes.
Thank you, Dr. Dewan. First of all, I wanted to thank the council for the many years of support provided through School Link services and other funds. In spite of this continued investment, the needs continue to outpace our ability to respond adequately. I want to share just one school story that happened less than 2 weeks ago. There were 4 serious situations, and at 9:30, a student was assessed by our site crisis response team. The assessment warranted contacting the mobile crisis team. The mobile response said that they would not be able to respond until 1 o'clock. Within the next hour, 2 student issues came to light requiring the involvement of San Jose Police Department. At 11:30, another student in distress was assessed by the suicide crisis response team, and this student also needed to be transported. This time, mobile crisis indicated that they did not have any support for the remainder of the day. Due to safety concerns for this student, 911 was contacted. San Jose Police Department and the school have a positive collaborative relationship. However, officers have shared that they are not specifically trained in matters of mental health, especially when it pertains to adolescents. Unfortunately, this distressed 6th grader was further traumatized by needing to be transported in the back of a police car. Now, we all know that mental health is not a crime. However, that is likely not the child's interpretation. The mobile crisis team finally arrived shortly after 3 o'clock in the afternoon to transport the student that was called for at 9:30 in the morning. Our mental health partners are likely experiencing the same staffing shortages that we've been talking about earlier. However, this story gets played out every day at schools throughout our country. And so one of my requests would be that we provide more support for our mobile crisis teams. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Ilaria Bauer from the Alum Rock Union School District. Dr. Bauer.
Thank you, Dr. Dewan, and thank you, Dr. Dewan, so much for this. I'm just saying hi to everybody, and I'm gonna go ahead and stop my video because our internet is very unstable right now. So I just wanted to say hi to everybody. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you, and I'm going to adhere to the prompt because I think the prompt was very, very important. I want to thank the county and Santa Clara County Office of Ed for the support that you have given to Alum Rock for many, many years. Thank you, County of Santa Clara, for the schooling services. I just want to echo what Shelley said. For the schooling services coordinators, the family engagement and support, I want to give a huge shout out to Dr. Rocio Luna for supporting us with the vaccination clinics during this past month that has made a tremendous difference for the families in the Alum Rock area. Also, thank you for the support to community-based organizations that support our students, such as Alum Rock Counseling Center, Community Solutions, and Uplift. The other part of the prompt was to bring to your attention some of the things that our community needs and some of the gaps. And speaking to staff and community members, one big gap for Alum Rock is in regards to McKinney-Bento families. These are unhoused families, many of them who are not formally identified as such. And so the need for hotel vouchers and placing shelters, it's the dire right now in the middle of another sort of pandemic. So that is one of the big needs for our community. Many of
Thank you, Dr. Bauer, I'm going to ask you to wrap up. I'm sorry.
No, thank you. The other is the EBT cards, the communication around the EBT cards.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next presenter is Superintendent Paulie Bowie from Fremont Union High School District.
Thank you very much for giving us the time today to speak with you. And I want to express my huge gratitude from the North County for extending schooling services to us and more behavioral health support. We are incredibly grateful. We know that we do not have some of the needs of my colleagues in the South County, but we still have needs. We have foster youth, we have LGBTQ plus students that are needing additional support. And we have invested highly in the support of these services as much as our funds would allow. But the addition of the help from schooling services has been invaluable. I think we have to realize that students have needs throughout this county. And as I'm suspecting everyone on this call, including all of the supervisors, there was a moment in time when you were in school and an adult became a very important partner in helping you be proud of yourself, be successful, be happy to come to school, made a difference in your attendance, a difference in your performance. And we are seeing that from all our teachers, and they are stretched to the max, giving those kinds of supports on an individual basis to our students every day. But that's that tier one that you've heard so much about. And we do need an increasing amount of help from all of our service providers at school for those students that are struggling beyond this. Even though we may not have so many students that aren't attending school, it's whether they're able to attend in their heads. They may physically be there, but are they ready to learn? And I can tell you firsthand that the schooling services and the behavioral health support has made an enormous difference in the students they've been able to serve. So I'm hoping that you can help us provide more of this for all students in this county. It's invaluable. And I think you all know how important it is to have a great connection with an adult. And these are very highly trained, compassionate people who can give more than I can imagine, and they are very much needed. So thank you so much again for the time. I hope we can work together.
Thank you. Our next presenter is Superintendent Vanderzee from the Eastside Union High School District.
Yes, thank you. Here in the East Side, we are building equitable communities, and we do that by 1, welcoming students as they are, 2, finding out their areas of strength and areas for growth so that we can positively respond. And we do that so that students can be full participants in their schools and therefore full participants in the future in Silicon Valley. When we welcomed 22,000 students as they were this year back to schools, we identified that there were some areas for growth and some areas to address. Last year, November, for pre-COVID, before distance learning, we identified 230 unhoused students. This year, at that same time, we were up to 434. Our number of identified unhoused students has doubled. We have anticipating the needs of our students after 17 months of distance learning and economic polarity and housing issues in our area, dedicated and hired 12 more social workers. We're up to 27 full-time social workers. We have a wellness center, a wellness space on all of our campuses, including a calming space for self-regulation, and that's accessible to all students. We have looked in to provide more resources, is making sure that we have intern program. We have 29 interns working at our schools, and you can see the list of collaborative partners, many of them coming through School Link services and through county support. But if we could go to the next slide, what I really want to focus on is this year we have had over 2,200, and as of today, 66 referrals. And when those referrals happen on-site with on-site providers, we have offered over 6,000 hours of service. Unfortunately, when we look at off-site referrals or through a program without off-site partners, out of over 1,000 referrals, only 98 appointments, 98 relationships came from that. So we really are seeing an increase in the need for services, but also as we plan this out and work together to make sure that those services are on site. Thank you, and look forward to partnering with you in the future.
Thank you. Our second panel is perspectives from our K-12 school districts, which are our unified districts. And our first speaker is Superintendent Albaron from the San Jose Unified School District.
I want to take this opportunity to thank the county for the work that we do together. I know we would not be able to serve the number of students we serve without services like the School Link services program. The majority of services provided in San Jose Unified are provided by our support staff, in addition to our teachers delivering district-wide social and emotional learning curriculum, second step. We have 204 support staff positions. This includes 80 counselors, 30 psychologists, 25 nurses, 45 licensed health technicians. We have a highly trained crisis support team. They go in and support school sites as needed, especially with our most severe cases. We also partner with community-based organizations to expand services. Almaden Valley Counseling, YMCA, Uplift are some of our partners. We're seeing significant increases in the social needs of our students. For example, close to 1,000 students have already self-selected and gone to the Wellness Center at Pioneer High School. We also have seen extraordinary behaviors, particularly at the elementary level. Our crisis support team is coming in, and our external partners are coming in to help us provide services to those students and their families. Our biggest challenge right now is staffing. 25% of our 204 support positions are filled by contractors or are vacant. And this further exacerbates the challenge that we already have, because sometimes these support positions are being used to provide coverage in the classroom because of the substitute shortage. So that is really, really a big problem. We also have, next slide, please. Our chronic absenteeism is between 15 and 20% right now. We have parent liaisons, attendance liaisons, and attendance clerks helping. But we see a lot of concern around families fearful of COVID, having to go back and forth with living with one family here in San Jose and then traveling to Central Valley to stay with relatives. A lot of insecurity around housing, families searching for jobs. It is become a real challenge, and many of the circumstances we can't control outside of what of the resources that we have. So we really are looking forward to partnering with the county and others to be able to address the dire need that we're seeing in our schools.
Thank you, Nancy.
Our next speaker is Dr. Flores, and Dr. Flores is the superintendent in the Gilroy Unified School District.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak to both supervisors and the public about some of these issues. I'm going to speak for a minute about mental health services, and you can just advance through my slides slowly while I talk. There's 4 slides. I don't have time to talk about each of them. So I'm going to keep talking, but as you've already heard from the prior superintendents, this just gives you a scope of what we're trying to do in our district. And we have a lot of mental health concerns and needs. In fact, it's a top priority in our district right now, starting with the Garlic Festival shooting, where hundreds of our students and staff were present, through the pandemic and the PTSD-like symptoms and extreme behaviors that are now exhibited, to a recent shooting that impacted many high school students in our district. We have more referrals and more cases of extreme behavior than we could ever have imagined before these 3 things happen in our community. We've had a tremendous increase in services, and here's some of our partners, and we thank them all so much, but the services way outpace the needs in our district. We have SLS, PEI, and behavioral health services, thanks to you, the county, and we rely tremendously on those services. We couldn't be doing the work we're doing with so many needy students in our district. We have a very high free and reduced count. Probably our biggest barrier right now is the referral-based system. We were just talking about this last week, how we wish that every student who needed to see a counselor in our district could just simply go to some place on our campus and see a counselor or a social worker. So my one ask would be to consider increased funding from the county level to try to reach the goal one day of having counselors or social workers at every one of our sites.
Thank you. And our final speaker on our superintendent panel is Dr. Garcia, the superintendent in the Morgan Hill Unified School District.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. If you can advance the slide, please. I too want to echo what my colleagues have said. We're also seeing the same sort of trends. It's quite heartbreaking. But for today, I want to focus on the wellness centers that we are offering at 4 of our secondaries. One of the wellness centers is in partnership with the Santa Clara County Office of Ed, and thank you, supervisors, for funding it. In addition to the 1 wellness center, we added 3 more. It's open to all of our students and our staff in the district. We are keeping very detailed data on every single one of the interactions. To date, we've had 7,973 student interactions. The wellness center counselors include MFTs, so marriage and family therapists, LSWs, also a connection to our outside agencies. They also too have a presence in our wellness centers. So we've also had 1,852 one-on-one meetings with our counselors. That's on a K through 12 level. And these are the top reasons that the students are reporting the need to be at the wellness center. For elementary, it's that feeling of anxiousness, and so we are conducting group counseling. At the middle school, I am feeling upset. I need to calm down or de-stress. And at the high school, I am feeling depressed. I am feeling anxious. What's not included in the slide As of Monday, these numbers represent the referral process. Staff referrals are 350, self-referrals are 32, and friend or family referrals are 4. We are in desperate need to replicate these wellness centers at every single one of our sites throughout our county. They are absolutely invaluable. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Chavez. That's the end of our panel. And I think we'll have closing remarks later.
Great, thank you so much. And we're going to go to our last panel, but before I do, Supervisor Ellenberg wanted to speak. Welcome.
Thanks so much. I just wanted to ask this question while it's all very fresh. The stories are concerning and heartbreaking. Thank you to all of the panelists for giving us a window into your schools. So the Student Linked Services quarterly report that's on tomorrow's CFSC agenda noted that calls to uplift mobile response and stabilization services from schools have significantly increased in the first several months of the school year. That was borne out by many of you. This contract was augmented by 10% in August, but I'm wondering, not sure to direct this to Dr. Smith or to Zelia, are there additional resources that are needed to either to Uplift's team or directly to districts for crisis response?
Sorry, I was trying to fiddle here with my control.
No problem.
Yes, we do know that there's been a significant increase in the number of calls, specifically by schools to MRSS, which is our mobile response program. Mm-hmm. We did increase it by 10%, and we just recently also received a grant that will also allow for additional increase to this program, and we can certainly take it back and take another look to see what other funds can be allocated to make sure that we are addressing all the needs of the students throughout the schools.
Thanks so much. I think we heard that really is one of the predominant needs here. And I believe that the contract amendment, the 10% increase was done as a one-time change in the MHSA plan, but I expect that behavioral health is going to need further increases and to maintain elevated contract levels really for as long as they're needed by our schools and their students.
Yes.
So thank you for looking at that, Zelia.
Thanks. And we're going to go to our last panel. And this panel is with our mental health with our insurance providers. And we're going to give them an opportunity to share the work that they're doing. And I'll begin with the Valley Health Plan.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for this invitation and for having me to speak about this topic. My name is Dr. Gilly Gez. I am the Chief Medical Officer for Valley Health Plan, and I'm happy to share a little bit about some of what we've been working on to try to improve access and build our network, especially as it pertains to pediatric behavioral health needs, pediatric and adolescent, I should say. So in many ways, practically, physical health has been separated from mental health and behavioral health needs, and we at VHP are really working to merge them into, as what another group called the whole child and the whole child perspective. I also want to acknowledge the significant need for more behavioral health professionals, both in our county, in our state, and across the country. And unfortunately, this need predated the pandemic, and we're finding that the pandemic has put even more stressors, especially on children, and that there is an even increased need now. Our focus in the past year has really been about improving members' access to care, our pediatric members' access to behavioral health care. And the way that we're doing it is we're working to remove auth requirements for some specialized services in behavioral health. And starting in January, we are going to remove an auth requirement for psychiatrists, which previously had blocked access to psychiatry without a referral. Most of our typical behavioral health is open without authorization. In the short time remaining, I want to point out that we're working very hard with a team internally to make sure that all of our individuals who are noted to have additional needs are really supported by a team of case managers, which include nurses, social workers, outreach coordinators, and we have created a behavioral health director position in order to be able to focus more in this area. And we'll have a specific pediatric team. And finally, network growth in this area has been really important. In the coming year, we anticipate about 11 organizational entities and 35 facilities joining our network to support and provide behavioral health. I see I'm out of time. I want to thank you so much. I'll stop here.
Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Lori Nakahara. I'm sorry, Nakahira. I apologize.
No problem. So I'm going to share my slides here. So I'm Dr. Lori Nakahira, and I want to thank you for inviting Santa Clara Family Health Plan to participate in this discussion, which is very dear and close to my heart as a pediatrician. So Santa Clara Family Health Plan is a medical health plan to low income and high risk persons and populations in Santa Clara County. We are not for profit, and our goal of the health plan is to improve people's quality of life as well as the well-being of and maintaining good health. As a pediatrician, I've seen children who are chronically missing school for a number of reasons, for headache, abdominal pain, and fatigue. And many of these symptoms can be attributed to anxiety and depression. For many of the children, they are not able to name this as anxiety or depression. And so what we wanted to start off with is really starting a foundation of wellness. And we've been very proactive with incentivizing wellness with gift cards and items of safety. With well visits, we start off with the prenatal, postnatal care visits, our well child visits that address immunization, education, and dental care. And we have healthcare screenings with that to prevent and catch early illnesses. And some of these healthcare screenings also include the trauma screenings, which is the adverse childhood experience screenings that some of the children have experienced with, a divorce, a death, or an incarceration of family members. And let's see, sorry, I just have these slides here. Behavioral health services is as a service to all of our members. We actually manage the mild to moderate, and County Behavioral Health does moderate to severe. Let's see here. We also have added family therapy, which is a newly added benefit for members who don't have a diagnosis of mental illness. And this really helps the children and families with adverse childhood experiences. So on slide 6.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up, but we'll get all the slides. Thank you.
Let me just stop sharing.
Next, we have Anthem Blue Cross, Janet and Alicia. I know that 2 minutes goes so fast. I'm so sorry.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I just wanted to thank you all for having us today. My name is Alicia Pimentel with Anthem. We serve 29 counties, including Santa Clara in the state of California. And we are also a Medi-Cal managed care plan. We currently serve about 75,000 Santa Clara County residents, and of those, about 37,500 are under the age of 18. Currently, we also are responsible for the mild to moderate portion of behavioral health services. We do not require prior authorization for our members. So members can go to the Anthem website, they can pick a provider, and they can make an appointment with no prior authorization required. They are able to have unlimited visits, and we also provide assistance with transportation. And we have care management and behavioral health clinicians, licensed social workers who assist our members in reaching their behavioral health goals. To expand services, we really have begun to focus on virtual behavioral health resources, specifically after COVID. So we have resources like Live Health Online, which is a telehealth psychology and psychiatry platform for members ages 10 and above, psychology services for 10 and up, and psychiatry services for ages 18 and up. We also have Shine Light on Depression, which is a web-based toolkit for schools and communities with free, ready-to-use resources that help raise awareness for depression and prevent suicide among youth, in collaboration with the American School Health Association and a national PTA. We have Psych Hub, which was designed to provide mental health support for those experiencing behavioral health needs due to COVID-19. And I won't go over this because we don't have a ton of time. We also, like I said, we have community health workers and behavioral health case management teams that will assist our members in navigating services. And we are currently working with the Office of Education, Behavioral Health, and Santa Clara Family Health Plan to implement the upcoming Student Behavioral Health Incentive Program to make sure that those dollars are flowing down to the schools for resources in students within your communities. So we did send a larger PowerPoint, so if anyone has questions, I'll answer them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. We're going to now move to HealthNet. Dr. Pooja Mittal.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and talk about this really important topic. HealthNet is a statewide health plan, and we serve Medi-Cal, Medicare, and also commercial members. We have a substantial presence in Santa Clara County, including a quarter of all county employees and their dependents. And I think what we really bring to this space is a deep experience in partnering with community organizations across the state and bringing services to kids where they're at, particularly in schools. And our focus is on supporting families in communities throughout California by increasing family and community resilience. And for this reason, our children's health work tends to focus on adverse childhood event support, building resiliency in families, and also supporting mental health in schools. Alongside the work that we do, providing case management support for our members and also other resources, including things like My Strength, which is a self-service health tool. We also do a ton of work around ACEs. We partner with our providers to support ACE screenings and have done 32,000 ACE screenings with providers as part of our ACE program. We also work to provide support for providers because, as many of you pointed out, especially in the schools, people are really struggling with providing the support to the kids. And so we have a series of provider resiliency drop-in sessions that we've been doing throughout the pandemic and will plan to continue. We've had over 225 providers attend more than 24 sessions. We also do other work within the community. One of our key programs is called Family Hui, which is a peer-led parenting support and family resiliency building program. And we're piloting this across 5 to 7 counties in California. And then as a second phase of this work, we'll be providing granting to families to be able to expand their leadership work within the community. I think one of the key things I'd like to talk about additionally is our partnership with schools.
I'm sorry, your time is up, but I appreciate you being here and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk more with you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Blue Shield of California.
Hi, everyone. My name is David Bond, and I'm the Director for Behavioral Health at Blue Shield of California. Before I was with Blue Shield, I'm a licensed clinical...
To call you by the name David Bond, and I'm the Director for Behavior.
Google.
Is that right?
Stop. Sorry. Before I joined Blue Shield of California, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm a pediatric trauma specialist. I was a Medi-Cal provider for about 10 years and then worked with the Trevor Project, which is suicide prevention for LGBTQ youth. I was the VP of clinical programs there for about 1.5 years. My friends teased me when I joined Blue Shield of California because it's an insurance company. They're like, you're a sellout, right? Why would you do this? You're mission focused. What I came to talk to you today was Blue Shield California is a nonprofit organization. So that means that we have a mission to assist not only our members, but we have a capability of providing services, not just to our members, but to an entire community. So what I wanted to talk to you today about was Blue Shield of California, Blue Sky Initiative. Unfortunately, all right, here we go. So Blue Sky Initiative is a program that we work with in a number of schools throughout San Diego County and in other places to provide treatment in schools, as Dr. Dewan said, access to mental health providers. But one of the most important things I want to note is this is a DHCS Health Equity award-winning program that is not just about bringing regularly Medi-Cal provided services into schools, but also an array of additional services around advocacy and education. The most important things that I want to mention are the access in Santa Clara County to youth mental health first aid training, NAMI on campus, and the Angst documentary. If you haven't, these are services that are available in all of your schools that will help to train teachers and other educators on how to work with students when they're in crisis or when they just have additional need. The Angst documentary is an excellent way to start the conversation with students, and NAMI on campus not only provides assistance to students, but also we have seen actually is a good career building pipeline to have homegrown mental health providers within your county who come from the county, and it actually instills an interest in becoming behavioral health providers among high school students.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I know this just went so fast for all of you. Kaiser will be our last presenter today on this item, and then we're gonna receive some comments from Marianne and then back to all of us to ask you questions. We're going to go actually to the public and then back to all of you.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Stuart Butler. I'm Regional Director of Behavioral Health and Addiction Medicine for Kaiser in Northern California. And we are seeing a really high demand for treatment consistent with the rest of the country and with your county. It really is hitting the youth the hardest. JAMA articles reported school-age Americans were 10 times more likely to die of suicide than COVID. And of course, this has disproportionately impacted those affected by child abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction. The hard choices that the youth are having to make, the proportion of ED visits between January and October 2020 for children 5 to 11 and 12 to 17 went up 24 and 31% respectively compared to the year before. The cost of closing schools, which at the peak of the pandemic with lockdown affected 90% of students worldwide, left more than 1/3 of school children with no access to remote education, has been devastating. A social crisis that will have long-lasting consequences for children in low-income families in particular. The studies now are coming out about studying kids in school, finding that that there are learning losses of kids that have been damaged really during the pandemic, slower than usual progress, attenuated learning gains, and lower level of performance compared to 2019. Kaiser Permanente has an extensive continuum of care from intensive outpatient program to virtual care that has actually impacted the ability for our members to access care, including our youth. We also have early psychosis intervention program. We work with Uplift and Seneca, both contracted with you all. And we've started a new program in Santa Clara County called Wraparound Services for Youth, which is actually impacting the youth and reaching out into the community, into the homes, educating, working with families in their environment to help support those that are difficult to engage.
Thank you so much. We're going to go to the public, and then Susan, I'm going to come back to us. If I could ask the clerk to call on our public speakers.
Yes, Madam Chair, 2 minutes per speaker. Is that correct?
Please.
All right, one moment, please. The next speaker is Gabrielle. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you very much, members of the committee. Gabriel Hernandez with the director of the CISA Puede Collective. I wanted to thank you for your leadership in trying to address, this childcare crisis. We saw how it got, exposed again with this pandemic, and especially in the areas. Every time I see the map and we do the overlays, it's always kind of that same area. But I'm also excited about some of the response in the area of the report titled Workforce Development Facilities and Opportunities. We have that workforce component that we've been doing on the Jobs to Grow, already training a group of 25 cohorts, and we'll be doing that on an ongoing basis for the next couple of years, and maybe we can figure out how to ramp that up more. I would also have you consider, grants for the cohorts to start their businesses. So figuring out how we can get some funds to people to start their businesses. And then obviously, increasing their wages and things of that sort. With facilities, one of our organizations, Grail Family Services, is wanting to expand care on off hours and weekends, and has a 3rd floor that can be built. to do that, and also maybe including a commercial kitchen for our food service cohorts that are wanting to start businesses. And so, and then like I've been advocating too is the county figuring out how to acquire the closed facilities that are already licensed and gone through the vetting that are just vacant and have closed up, and trying to figure out how we can at least rent those, lease those, or get access to those. And just saying that we look forward to working with the partners like COE, First Five, and others to coordinate our efforts so that we move these services forward to our children.
Next speaker is Heidi Amberling. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Heidi Amberling, Deputy Chief of Early Learning at First Five, Santa Clara County. Thank you both for your inspirational leadership in ensuring that children and families across our county have access to affordable, high-quality childcare and preschool. Thank you also for highlighting the crisis level shortage of qualified early learning and care professionals in our county. First Five is grateful to be a part of a strong countywide early learning partnership, including the Santa Clara County Office of Education, our co-lead agency in the Quality Matters: A Strong Start for Kids initiative, as well as the City of San Jose Public Library, San Jose Parks and Recreation, and many others. We've worked together over the past few weeks to share research and craft the workforce development initiatives presented in your packet today. The enormous challenge we now face is the stabilization, recruitment, and retention of our diverse early learning and care workforce. This is an equity issue affecting our state's universal preschool effort, early educators, family childcare home providers, and family friend and neighbor caregivers. As you've heard, the childcare infrastructure is in desperate need of your support, so more children and families can be served in all areas of Santa Clara County. Without childcare, working families cannot participate in the economic recovery of our region, and without qualified early learning and care professionals, there is no childcare. We stand together as key partners in an equity-first investment that protects and supports a bright future for Santa Clara County's children. Thank you very much for your time.
Next speaker is Steve Eckert. I've unmuted you. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Supervisors Chavez and Supervisor Ellenberg, for your leadership in addressing a wide range of behavioral health challenges that youth are facing, including chronic absenteeism, which is exacerbated by COVID-19. I want to remind us all from the Addressing Chronic Absenteeism Recommendation Report that's dated August 17th on page 9, which advised more granular analysis is needed regarding the need for additional case management services for schools regarding chronic absentee. Also, while there's an unprecedented state funding available to expand school-based behavioral health services, the workforce to provide these services has worsened from a shortage to an emergency. We can't expand services without staff. Systems will need to work together to make sure that we're not recruiting from each other and that all systems are stable. Solutions include immediate pay increases for retention, expanding the qualification requirements, and quickly to increase the pipeline to quickly meet this demand and take advantage of this opportunity. Thank you again for your attention to this issue.
Next speaker is Kathleen King. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Hello, this is Kathleen King from Healthier Kids Foundation, and last year we completed 462 mental health fifth grader screenings in a pilot using a modified Kaiser Wellness Survey. This year at 3 districts, we have screened already 1,274 fifth graders with a physician asking the questions. We hope to screen 2,500 in 6 districts this school year. We couldn't do this without working with SCCOE, School Link Services, Behavioral Health, and the district staffs. Our hope is to help families navigate to the services available. I want to thank SCCOE and Behavioral Health Agency for convening together and trying to work many of these issues with the Santa Clara County Behavioral Health. Thank you.
Next speaker is Wendy Mahaney-Garahu. You have 2 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. This is Wendy Mahaney-Gurhu. I'm the Chief of Community Impact at First Five. I'm also the Chair of the Library and Education Commission for the City of San Jose and a trustee for San Jose Unified. All three agencies want to thank and commend the leadership and steadfast, consistent leadership of both Chair Chavez and Vice Chair Ellenberg. Without you, our children and families have little voice. I also must speak on behalf of Uplift Family Services, as my husband is the chief executive in that amazing organization that centers children and families first. I know they thank you as well. And finally, I really want to thank on behalf of First Five, our amazing partners working through all of these issues in a trying time, in trying times. They are critical partnerships that will lead to the best solutions. And finally, I want to highlight that the city of Milpitas this week became the first city to invest in our apprenticeship program for early learning education. We want to thank the city of Milpitas and its leaders and really encourage and I'm looking forward to such partnership with the county. First Five, as always, stands ready to partner with you and community. Thank you.
And that concludes our public speakers.
Thank you very much. And I do want to say a very sincere thank you to everybody who came and presented. We had a lot of presenters and that can be very, very challenging to get out information. Supervisor Ellenberg, if I could, I just wanted to, and I apologize I didn't do this sooner, part of the reason that we had the makeup of the partners today was that we had an opportunity in the past to hear from different partners, but we hadn't really talked to our partners in the health insurance world. And I so appreciated hearing from our staff and the superintendents of the schools, because they have a very, very bird's eye view along with their principals and teachers in their classrooms about what the needs are on their campuses. And so having that really authentic voice here was, I think, very important. But one of the reasons that I was so interested in getting our insurance partners is one, I had a discussion with two of our partners who are insurers, and they were thinking a lot about their investments, and we heard some of that today. But one of the things I'm just really struck by is that we know these are investments that need to be made, and there are kind of two broad questions out there. And I think one of them is concretely, what are the most appropriate investments to be made and by whom, right? That's like one body of work. And then the second is, how is all of this going to be sustainable long term? And one of my big concerns is that that we're building out a system that we don't yet have an answer to the sustainability question. And I think we have to answer that question concurrently. I don't think we can wait to answer it because we have an emergency, but I think that needs to be addressed concurrently, which is why I was so interested in our insurance partners joining us today. And just to kind of be clear about this, I still don't believe that I believe that that our staff and leaders in the County Office of Education are really trying to hone in on chronic absenteeism as an expression of other issues that may be in a household, and whether that's mental health or lack of food or other issues. I am still concerned that we don't have enough of an emphasis on how we're going to address chronic absenteeism, especially as it relates to now that I think we're in a crisis around that. And I think there is obviously a behavioral health and mental health component. I think there's an overall family wellness component. And I am still concerned that the structures that we have in place leave us with a legal infrastructure and some support from the schools, but not a shared approach to how we're going to address chronic absenteeism. And so I want to, think a little bit more about what I've learned and heard today, and come back with maybe a little more detailed proposal about how I would like us to move forward on that. as it relates to the mental health services needs, this really is a question that I think I want to start with Dr. Dewan on. And one of the issues that I've raised is better understanding what resources are available to schools, what resources are going to be available to us through the Mental Health Services Act or other revenues that we're going to have. And then how do we right size investments with what schools have available to them? And I wonder, Dr. Dewan, if you have given more thought to that. And I'll tell you what I'd asked Dr. Dewan was, given all the resources that we see that are kind of coming down the pipe, how do we prioritize? I genuinely don't know the answer to that, and I'm interested, Dr. Dewan, in your thinking about that.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. And I think you heard some examples today of how schools are using some of their existing resources, whether those were some of the one-time funds from the federal government or some of the learning loss mitigation resources to try to expand access to qualified personnel on their school campuses. The truth of the matter is schools really don't receive much of any direct funding for mental health and wellness services. It's fairly limited. I think the state is very interested in trying to change that through this new initiative that I described earlier. I think our opportunity is that we are well positioned as a county that has been working in a coordinated and collaborative way, establishing, for example, a coalition that includes all of our school districts who are focused on expansion of school-based behavioral health services. And this, along with the partnership that we have with the county, our managed care organizations, and others, will serve us well as we go after these competitive state grants. I also know that the state is intending to sustain some of these investments in school-based behavioral health services and fully expect to see additional legislation as well as additional state investments in the upcoming state budget. And lastly, I anticipate that there will be some resources and expertise, technical assistance designed to help schools and managed care organizations do a better job of billing in order to have sustained revenue to offset some of the cost. There's some policy changes along that line as well that will be taking effect soon. So I would just also say I don't think we're at risk of having too much service right now. I think what we're really seeing is that even with the incredible partnership and investment of the county and the work of our schools, that there are still gaps in the system, and we're a long way from being in a place where there would be duplication of effort.
Yeah, I'm not worried about I agree with you, Dr. Dewan. I don't believe we're going to have too many services. I think the real question is, given that we do have finite resources, how do we prioritize those resources? And Dr. Smith, if I could just come to you for a minute, I'll share with Supervisor Ellenberg that in 2018, I had pulled together a number of the healthcare providers in our community to ask them if they thought it was possible for us to create a mental health system for children in our county that had 100% coverage. Did we have the resources in our county to make sure that every child that needed services had access to them? And we had some interest from two of our healthcare partners were very interested in aggressively trying to close the gap and looking at the gap between children who had Medi-Cal or who were Medi-Cal eligible, children who, we have about 2% of children in our community who don't have access to health insurance, but we have a whole bunch of children who don't have access to health care, right? And so how did we all close that gap? And Dr. Smith, the reason I'm raising this with you is that I think we began some discussions about how to how to put a system together in the county with all of our partners so that we didn't have these gaps. And frankly, this was before COVID, where we've seen this explosion of need. And I wonder if you have given some thought to how you see the problems that were faced, especially based on all the feedback we got today, and what role the county should or could play in making sure that we have one system, not one system of care. I don't expect that, but really have a system that can be responsive to the needs of kids in our community.
Well, complex question. I don't think I can answer completely in 2 minutes, but let me try a basic answer. And I think more will come when we have our behavioral health workshop in January, because we will be going through the entire continuum of care as it applies to both children and adults. So I think the answer to your question, roughly speaking, is that we do have a continuum of care, excuse me, for severely affected, mentally ill children, but for the individuals who are moderate or mildly affected, which includes a lot of the kids that you're talking about today who are having problems with absenteeism, we don't have a comprehensive care system right now. And that should definitely be something we work in a partnership with the schools and with other healthcare providers. The behavioral health system in the county, is created by the state to focus on severe mental illness. We still do some expansion into moderate and mild, but most of those kids are treated in a primary care setting if they have access to medical care, as you said, and some of them don't have access to medical care. So a broader approach will be needed with more partnership and obviously more funding. So that's the best I can do in 2 minutes.
Right, and I'm going to come right to you, Supervisor Ellenberg. I'm just going to finish this thought with you, Dr. Smith. One thing that I heard Steve Eckert, and I think we are all in agreement about the challenging time we're in terms of hiring people. And I thought David Bond's point about getting deep into schools now, I personally think the public sector should be partnering with the school districts at a much deeper level to engage kids when they're freshmen, so that by the time they're graduating, they can't wait to come and work for VMC or one of our other opportunities, or for the schools. I don't want to get in an arm wrestling match with Glenn, the superintendent at Eastside Union High School District, but I would really like us to take on the project of taking a look at the children, the kids system, and seeing what we can do. I know with the adult system, we're working really hard at that, but I do feel like with young people, we've got a fighting chance, and especially because we have so many nonprofit partners that are really providing so much of the service. And I apologize for not having them on today. I know that was a missing piece, as well as missing First Five. But I'd be curious, Dr. Smith, what you think about tackling that as part of our overall approach to healthcare as a county.
Sure, I think we will identify, excuse me, what holes we have in the system when we talk at our workshop in January, and we'll obviously take direction from the board about where we should go from there. The issue is more complex than we need to go into today, but clearly unless we start, we don't finish. So yes, we should move ahead with direction from the board on where we need to put resources and where we're going to get the resources from. But it clearly will be a partnership, and I don't think the county itself can do the entire service. They're going to require some participation from our partners in the private sector.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I will just, before I go to Supervisor Ellenberg, just for our colleagues who are joining us from the schools, one of the other, there are a number of areas that we are already working with you. One of them, though, that's in process of being developed is our Child Diagnostic Center. And I know that Dr. Dewan and I had a chance to meet with Paul Lorenz to talk about a more formal role for the school districts. But the idea here would be that as children get assessed, as early as we can find that they have a need, that we're able to do a collaboration between the school and the medical providers right away. One, two, I think it will take away some of the animosity that sometimes grows out of what a child needs and what the school can provide. But the other is it allows us to bring in partners like the San Andreas Regional Center and other partners earlier on, so that we're able to support families at the earliest opportunity instead of waiting so late, which often happens with children in our community. Supervisor Ellenberg.
Thanks very much. This has all been really, excuse me, really fascinating. I wanted to take advantage of the fact that we have so many providers here to ask some questions. That it's really a unique opportunity. But I'm going to start first with the Family Health Plan and Anthem, since they are our current providers. From the timelines presented on the Student Behavioral Health Incentive Program, letters of intent are due from managed care plans to the state by the end of the month. And I'm wondering if both Family Health Plan and Anthem are planning to submit letters of intent, and if so, is it a joint submission for the county, or what will this look like for two planned counties like ours?
I can talk about there has been an extension for the letter of intention. We are planning on filling that out. And I don't remember if we actually have to do it in collaboration, but it does have to be collaboration with the County of Education and the Behavioral Health. So we've all been meeting, and with Anthem also, to collaborate on this.
And I can add to, sorry.
Please, go ahead.
I was just going to say I can add to that. The letters of intent will be individual. We plan to submit for all of our counties. And we have already gotten buy-in from Dr. Dewan and her team, and we are working with Santa Clara Family Health Plan as well to submit those letters of intent. And now they're due, I believe, at the end of January.
Mm-hmm. And if it's done separately, do we expect that all managed care plans that conduct a gap analysis and develop an intervention plan will be funded, or are they competitive grants?
I can answer that. So yes, the analysis will be done in partnership with the other managed care plans. So we will work with Santa Clara Family Health Plan to submit one analysis to make it easier for the county in partnership with County Behavioral Health as well. And then they're still finalizing the way that the dollars, incentive dollars will flow through the managed care plans, but it will be based, right now we're understanding it will be based on the membership of each plan on how it's broken up.
Okay. Thanks. Let me turn to Dr. Nakahira. Thank you for presenting. It's a pleasure to meet you this way and get to hear from you. Slide 8 of your presentation outlines many of the key issues that we've discussed and that will be really critical to address in planning. And I'm pleased to see work in these areas. Are these listed as likely focus areas within the context of the Student Behavioral Health Incentive Program planning underway, or do they represent other priorities of the Family Health Plan to address within your provider network and member services?
So we're hoping to collaborate on the first two with the increasing wellness centers with the schools, as well as increasing the access to behavioral health providers. So internally, what we've been doing is that I'm doing contracting with behavioral health specialists to do telehealth. And then we're hoping to work with the Student Behavioral Health Incentive Program to be able to provide some of these services within the school. So that the children don't have to miss school or leave school early, those kinds of things, and help coordinate this with the families so that they can meet the children at school prior or after school. So that's part of it. We have not come to a plan yet of what exactly is going to be done in the schools, but we are collaborating with Anthem and the school, the education board, and also with the county behavioral health. So yes.
Great. It's good to hear. One of the most compelling data pieces that continues to ring in my head is that kids are 23 times more likely to keep appointments and to seek and accept mental health care if it's offered on their school campuses. So I do think that's really a critical piece. So thank you for that. And turning to the private providers, first, thank you so much for being here. I believe that your partnership on these issues is really critical. And I'm happy for any of you to speak to this. What steps can the county take to coordinate your engagement, especially in moving to a future where on-campus services can be billed to private providers?
This is Pooja. I can speak to HealthNet's part on that.
Terrific.
The last piece that I was going to speak to was really around this, which is we've partnered with Hazel Health, who's bringing services into schools. And they're already in several schools across California, but we're trying to build out that network. And I think the nice thing about Hazel Health is that it allows providing telehealth services at the schools, both behavioral health and physical health, connecting with their PCPs, people's PCPs. And as that sort of shifts over, right now they're being billed through other avenues, but the plan will be able to start paying for those services through the schools through Hazel Health. And so we're really excited about that partnership. It's a new partnership, and I think that's going to be really critical in bringing those services into schools.
Thanks. I appreciate that, Pooja. Any of the other providers care to share what they are doing or thinking about?
David has his hand up.
Sure.
David, go ahead.
Hi, team. So there's actually a current piece of proposed legislation that will enable the county mental health plan, if they're on campus providing services to schools, to students who have commercial health insurance, yet have not accessed a provider through their health insurance. If the county is providing that service with those clinicians, it may be eventually possible to seek reimbursement from the commercial health plan for the services that are provided there on campus. If done right, and if executed responsibly, I think that this is going to be a fantastic idea. The additional piece, because we're a medical health provider as well, I just wanted to mention about the student behavioral health incentive program. So this is being rolled out to all managed care plans actually on Monday, I believe, at a larger meeting. I just happened to be on the work group for DHCS. So for the next year is engaging in this gap analysis, this countywide assessment. And then afterwards, there are that list of 14 potential interventions, which we can choose from collaboratively with the County Office of Education, as well as the County Mental Health Plan, to identify what is going to best serve those gaps that are identified. So I think there was a question earlier about, like, are any interventions potentially competing with each other? Are they collaborative? I think the intention is that we shouldn't start planning now exactly what the interventions are going to be until we have a genuine understanding of the legitimate gaps that there are throughout the county, which are going to be best informed by the education authorities themselves in the County Office of Education, making sure that the managed care plans are not making the decisions for the schools and the students who know best what they need.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate that too. And it's nice to meet you as well.
This is Stuart Butler, Dr. Butler from Kaiser.
Yes.
And we're working closely with the county mental health system in order to identify youth who are having significant problems, who are Kaiser members, also those who have Medi-Cal as well. We have a number of Medi-Cal members who are part of Santa Clara County. And also, I mentioned earlier some of the programs that we're developing, including additional residential programs for youth, that has been really striking, as well as adding to our eating disorder, which has become a significant issue among our youth, increasing. We're going to work with the school system in order to get for them to be able to quickly identify our Kaiser members and get them into treatment. I'm actually hoping that we're going to work out some ways in which we can work with them virtually as well, so we don't necessarily have to duplicate what's happening in the school system, but actually can coordinate and care together in the school systems.
It's an interesting, thank you for that, an interesting challenge, because if Kaiser is pulling out their patients to their members to provide services, and Blue Shield identifies their families, then potentially what we have is a patchwork of services, and what you get depends on what your coverage is, and I would be concerned just in the abstract of that leading to potential inequities if one provider is offering, which is true outside of school, but if we're providing services at school, we really need to be thinking about how the same quality and dosage and type of programs should be available to all kids at the same level of need. So the gap analysis, I think, will be really fascinating to see how we put all of this together and make sure we're serving really all of our kids, regardless of their coverage. If you have a stomach ache, you can go to the nurse, and you
That's
can go to
right.
that same nurse regardless of what insurance your family has or doesn't have. I think we need to get to that kind of parity with mental health services at the schools.
I agree entirely. We don't want to leave any youth behind.
And I would just add, that's part of the reason I think we need to have a conversation just as both as a health provider and insurance provider ourselves, Susan, because, it's interesting. I think that there are many people who also fall in a category of being underinsured. And so they're opting, they can't afford the services, and then they're not easily in a network to access them anyway. So it's, so I mean, that's why I'm hoping if we can pull a group together to.
And it's the same message, Cindy, that we talk about with everything. You need to intervene earlier when the problems are smaller, the issues are more manageable, and avoid the more catastrophic consequences down the line. I agree. I have just, if it's all right, one more question, and this is back to Dr. Dewan. In the report to the board in December of 2020, the three major models of access for students were outlined: the school-linked services, on-campus wellness centers, and Alcove, each, of course, with unique strengths. And at that time, the plan was to explore financial feasibility of expansion and recommend a mix of these resources to expand access for youth across tiers 1, 2, and 3. I'm wondering whether the partners have settled on a vision of how these three components fit together that can guide our investment of state and local and ARPA funds. So I'm wondering, Dr. Dewan, first, if you can speak to that, and then second and finally, can you comment on where screening activities like those conducted by the Healthier Kids Foundation would fit into this plan for expansion and coordination? And thank you.
Yes, thank you, Supervisor Ellenberg. So I think where we see ourselves landing right now, and especially in light of the policy changes at the state level and the state investment in both wellness center expansion, mental health, the MHSSA work, and the community schools programs, that we see a strong potential with the mix of expanded school-linked services and the wellness center initiatives. We also recognize that there's a significant role of some of those Alcove-like programs that currently exist and need to be sustained. So we're not recommending any type of closure or defunding of those. They're essential. But the other two models are where we see that mixed delivery system, as well as the fact that schools will be able to add additional professionals on their school campuses as a result of some of these other state initiatives. With regard to the screenings, we see that they have an important role. I think we are still working through some of the protocols and procedures through the pilots with the Healthier Kids Foundation. And we are also working through some of that with some of the state policy leaders to see where it's going to fall into this full initiative. There are conversations at the state level about the need to have screenings as a part of the operation of schools, and identifying when those screenings, is it universal, or is there a particular trigger that would warrant a screening? And so a lot of those policies are being worked on concurrently.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody today, all of the experts that have joined us and helped to educate and move us forward in policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Ellenberg. I'm going to wrap up with some just broad recommendations, Supervisor Ellenberg, that I think are reflective of the questions that have been laid out today by both of us. And one is that I think overall, I do want to ask for a work plan and a working group and a funding framework for the body of work relative to item 3A, and that's the child care, well-being, mental health, and chronic absenteeism body of work. And Supervisor Ellenberg, I think one of the other issues that you added to that was, I think what you were saying, well, maybe you could just chime in. I wrote some notes down and I can't remember if they were mine or yours.
Not sure.
Workforce development. So that you had raised a really important point about workforce development in terms of feeling very confident that we had the right lead organizations in each bucket. I'm still thinking that we don't know the answer to that because we haven't seen how all the grants are going to come out, which is why I'm recommending that we have that work group pull together a work plan, and as funding becomes available so that we can see what that is and set our targets as a county. I also wanted to include your recommendation that we have an interim child advocacy director as a board, as a motion from this meeting today.
Thanks. I just want to make, I want to make a separation though, because I think one work group that's tackling childcare and the mental health and
no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying just for the body of work relative to childcare, that I want to get a work plan and set for that body. Yeah.
Okay.
In your buckets, but recognizing the partners could change based on the funding.
Totally. Okay. Thank you so much.
And then the interim directive on the interim. Yeah, I think that's a really smart idea. And then the second, on the mental health front, I do want to ask that we do a referral from here now to Dr. Smith to come back and have at least as part of the presentation when we have the mental health discussion in January about how we frankly just close the loop and bring all of our partners in to make sure there aren't gaps in services, recognizing again that there are new resources coming in and better understanding how to engage both with our insurance partners, but also the provider partnership, including our nonprofit, because the nonprofits provide so much care in our community that they can't be left out. I don't want to prescribe exactly how they should do that, Susan. I would like Dr. Smith to get a chance to talk to his staff and think more about that. Just as if they could make that part of the presentation when it comes back to us, because I think that's coming back to us the second meeting in January or sometime at the end of January.
Actually, what I'd like to request, because of the size of this contemplated workshop and really wanting to have a solid amount of time to dive in. Dr. Smith, my request, and I'll make this
I think he had to leave, Susan. That's why I was just talking to you.
I shall say it into the ether because he will hear it. Somebody will report it to him. I'd like that to be a standalone meeting and not tagged on to either of our January board meetings. There's just too much, and I don't want either that to get short shrift or other items that we might have on the agenda. We're adding more and more, and I think it's critical.
Yeah,
but
I think that's fine.
But,
Susan, let me make another recommendation, and that is that we just have it then come back to children's, family, seniors, so that we can have a deeper dive into it. Because I think for it to be baked for the whole board, I just wanted the board to be able to say, frankly, to give some direction that this is a body of work that we want investigated. But we can certainly bring that back to children's, family, seniors.
That's fine.
Because there's some work that needs to be done before they could do a workshop for us anyway, which is why what I was really just going to be asking them for was to sunshine that this is a body of work that they're going to be working on, because it would be a lot and that would require board direction. Right. So, but we can have them come back to children's, family, seniors first.
All right.
And then the last thing is, let's go back to my notes. Oh, the other thing that well, I think maybe I'll leave it there because I think that piece of work needs to be done before we go too much further. And I'm going to think a little bit more about chronic absenteeism because I'm not satisfied that we're where we need to be yet. But I think that may have more to do with just me digesting what I've learned today, and I'll take the time to do that. Susan, did you have anything else you want to add?
Nope. If that was all a motion, I'm happy to second it.
Okay, great. And before we wrap up, I just want to say to everyone, particularly Dr. Dewan and Rocio, and all of our behavioral health staff, Zelia and all of our superintendents, how very, very grateful we are to all of you. We recognize that the job you have is very challenging right now, and we want to support your efforts to make sure children are healthy and safe and thriving, no matter where they are. And Supervisor Ellenberg and I have had, we've just got a lot of excitement around this body of work. And so we're grateful to all of you. And I now remembered the last thing. For the Child Advocacy Center, I do want to make sure we formally add in, for the Child Diagnostic Center, that we formally add in a partnership with the County Office of Education and also to the Child Advocacy Center. So I'm going to include those in the motion because those are directions that we would need to give our staff. All right, we have a motion and a second, and let's see if we, how this will turn out. I'm just kidding. There's only two of us. Can we ask for a roll call from our staff?
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
And Chairperson Chavez.
Thank you. Yes.
Woohoo, it passed.
Yeah, thanks. And then, and thanks again to everybody for their incredible work. We have two more items on our agenda, and one of them is public comment. And this is an opportunity to speak to this committee on an item that is within our purview, but not on the agenda today. I see no hands. And to that end, we are adjourned until December 17th, tomorrow at 10 for our regular Children's Family Seniors Committee. But thank you, everybody, very, very much. We appreciate all of you. Have a safe, happy holiday.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Have a great evening.
You too.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Recording stopped.